Hello, and welcome to Elves, Rings, and Nerdy Things. Sean, I believe this is episode 28.
This is episode 28.
28.
You are correct.
All right, well, I am your co-host, Sam Marvin, still fresh from new parenthood. Forgive any lapses in judgment or slurred speech. I'm still operating on limited sleep. Here with my co-host, Sean. Sean, how you doing?
Doing very good. I've got some beef I need to get out into the open.
So this episode is going to be about some beef. Well, we're going to start with beef. It's an appetizer, beef appetizer. And then I think the main course is going to be a discussion about an article or a listicle, if you will, about the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. And then just some updates from Sean's recent viewing of the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I know that we will endeavor in the very near future to cover that once both of us have seen it, but that is not currently the situation. So, Sean, do you want to put that beef on the table?
Yeah, it's pretty much movie etiquette. And I'll say, more often than not, I dislike people. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm a pessimist. I think I'm more of a realist. And I have some negative thoughts on human nature. And I think the pandemic just exacerbated some of the problems of movie etiquette. Because I remember having these same issues before COVID. But I have found, since I started going to movies again after 2020 and like the beginning of 2021 when theaters opened back up, I would say out of every 4 movie-going experiences, only one of them has been positive. So I don't know, like is it getting more on my nerves? Sure.
Well, you are getting older.
That is true. I've my third decade on this planet, but I don't know, like my biggest things are talking, and even during the previews, like I'm the kind of moviegoer that
you like the previews. You got to get there early.
Like the previews.
Yeah.
So here's another beef that I just realized.
Okay.
The movie says it starts at 8:50 p.m.
This is like letter to the editor in like a local newspaper type thing. Okay.
Carly and I bought a ticket. I'm not going to name the name of the theater.
Well, they're a sponsor,
see
so
Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves at 8:50 p.m. What time did the movie start, Sam?
Oh, probably 9:15.
9:20.
Oh my God. Half an hour?
Carly and I were late to the theater. We got to the theater probably around 9, and the previews had like just started. So part of me goes, I'm excited that I still get to see the previews. Shame on me for being late to the movie. But then when I realized that the movie was starting roughly 30 minutes after the start time on my ticket, I was kind of bothered. So that's my secondary beef. But my primary beef is just the audacity of people.
Okay.
When you go to a movie, it's just that social structure of everybody.
The contract. It's a social contract. This is becoming a very Larry David episode. This is basically Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yeah.
Everybody has agreed to unwritten rules when you buy a ticket to go see a movie in the theater. You don't talk, you don't get on your phone, you keep your popcorn munching to a minimum. And I'll say yesterday was a good experience at the theater.
Okay.
I was taken aback at how good of a time it was. The people didn't bother me. Everybody around me was also excited to see the movie, so everybody was into it. You didn't get, I think the last really bad movie going experience I had was Avatar: Way of the Water. There was a woman, not even whispering, talking to her child, like 6 seats down from me. And my blood pressure was so high, I couldn't enjoy the film.
Well, I'm sure James Cameron would love for you to buy another ticket and come back and try that again. No. Did you say anything to this woman who was talking to her child?
No, they were just too far enough away to where I would be causing a big scene if I got
See,
up.
that's the problem, right? It's always the retaliation. It's like in hockey. The retaliation gets the penalty, right?
So I get punished.
Yeah. If you were to say, hey,
shut the fuck up.
Tell your snot-nosed little brat to hold it for the other 2.5 hours of this movie.
I don't give a shit how cool he thinks the 3D is. Keep it to yourself.
Okay, so we got the popcorn munching, the preview thing is annoying just because half an hour is a significant amount of time in your day.
I mean, if that's the norm, shame on me. I should know that. It's an unwritten rule that I didn't know, but now I know. Start getting to the theater 20 minutes late if you want to show up for your movie on time.
Well, the movie ticket should be like a plane ticket, right? A plane ticket has the departure time, but then it also has the boarding time. So if you're the type of person who wants to see the previews, there should be a preview start time and a film start time.
Yes.
And everybody knows, here's the other thing with going to the theater, there's an incentive to get there early and pick your seat, right? So they know that they can.
Not anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You can reserve your seats. Okay.
Yeah. This is like Carly and I bought our tickets yesterday morning on our way to lunch. And yeah, we had our seats lined up. Now, here's the other thing that comes in with picking your seats.
Just going to say, okay.
If I pick my seats and the theater is relatively empty, how dare you pick a seat next to me?
Well, so I will say for that.
Don't defend it.
Well, let me just play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay.
If the empty seats are on the periphery of the theater and there could be a neck cranking situation or
I said a relatively empty theater.
Yeah, I guess the analogy here is the urinal, right? In a men's room. If there are 3 urinals and Sean, you're on the far left.
You go to the far right.
And I walk in, I don't go to the middle urinal right next to you. I go to the far right. That's right.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so on the movie theater thing, I'm imagining this ticket was relatively expensive. What like how much does set you back? $16, $19?
For the 2, yeah, probably something like that.
So what I would like movie theater, and so the picking, the ability to pick your own seat at the movie theater.
Then you're paying more for the prime seating. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe, but I think.
But I disagree with that.
I think there's. Have you ever gone to like one of those fancy movie theaters where they have waiters and you can get a hot meal, like a steak dinner, at the theater, and you have a little table next to your seat?
At that point, stay home.
Well, okay, so I've never done that because
I think of like someone fucking gnawing on a chicken bone while I'm trying to.
So there is that, right? The squeaky silverware
on the fucking plate as I'm just losing my mind. Yeah, so there is a social contract when you go to a movie theater. Primarily, shut the fuck up. Turn your phone off and shut the fuck up. Those are the 2 big ones.
Yeah. This was years ago, but Haley and I went to an independent movie theater in Ann Arbor to see a documentary called Tim's Vermeer. Are you familiar with this?
No, I'm not.
It was about a guy who basically recreated the technique using a camera obscura, or was it a camera? It wasn't even a camera. It was using mirrors, not even a camera obscura. Very interesting optical setup to recreate the manner in which Vermeer, the Dutch painter, painted. And he recreated, I think it was the music lesson, one of the paintings of Vermeer. And it was absolutely incredible because it was also not just the process of him learning how to do this, but discovering things about the way Vermeer painted. And it was fascinating. It was also it's an independent theater. It's a documentary about art, but it's not about art entirely. Kind of hoity-toity. It was an older crowd. There were 2 older folks sitting near us that could not stop talking about the movie. And not just, oh, this is incredible. It was actively expressing their disbelief in the things that were being shown on screen for a documentary. Oh, I don't think he actually did that. I don't believe that he actually, and it was, so not even are you having an interesting conversation. You're not soothing a child who's having a hard time with the action on screen. You're just blowing hot air. And I shushed them. The only time I've ever shushed.
Oh, you're a shusher.
I shushed.
Oh my God. The balls on you.
Yeah. Well, I did it once and they kept going. And then somebody else, I had a comrade in that movie theater who said, stop talking.
Oh, well, they're not a shusher though.
They're not. They didn't shush.
So here's the problem.
You distinguish between shushing and other.
Yeah. So what you did was too passive.
Oh yeah, okay.
A shh isn't going to get you anywhere. You've got to be assertive. If someone's talking in a theater, you got to let them know you need to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
like a shh.
well, if I didn't live in a concealed carry state, I would probably be a little bit more assertive with my
That's a good point.
reinforcing the social contract. I'm not looking to get shot or punched in the face. But then that being said, I was in Ann Arbor at a movie called Tim's Vermeer in the middle of the afternoon. So I don't think the old lady would have shot me. She might have hit me with her umbrella. But
when you started this, I thought you said veneer. And I was like, you watched a documentary about veneers?
yeah, I'm very into dental work.
I was like, what the?
Yeah. No, Tim's Vermeer. It was a great movie.
I actually had my besides last night's Dungeons and Dragons, a film Cyrano. I saw Cyrano in a little indie theater close to our house here. And I had a great experience, filled with old women as well. But it was when I was unemployed. So it was me and a bunch of old women watching Cyrano at like 2 p.m. at a little indie theater. It was great.
Yeah.
It's called the Grand Cinema. I'm going to not support the big theaters, but the small indie theater, if you live in Tacoma or Seattle, go to the Grand Cinema. They're great.
We don't have to go on too much longer, although this is a relatively fertile topic. I'll say I have not gone to a movie in the movie theater in a very long time. I think it was probably Greta Gerwig's Little Women, which I saw in DC with Haley and my mom. And that was at least a year, maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember. It was when it came out. And then prior to that, I think that was the first movie I saw since the beginning of the pandemic. And prior to that, it would have been the movie 1917.
Great movie.
It was a great movie. The viewing experience was okay, except there was a group of people who were sitting on our same aisle further into the theater. And this was one of those fancy movie theaters where it's like an entertainment complex. So they have movies, but then there's also an arcade and a bar, a sports bar, and all sorts of, I think there's bowling and all sorts of crazy stuff. And they had a wait service. You could place an order using your phone or using like a little console, and somebody would bring food to you in the theater, including during the movie. And so these people kept ordering food. And then when the movie ended and the lights come up, the entire area around them is just covered in their debris. And not just wrappers and things like that, but actual food. The popcorn was all over the floor. I think there was other like wet food, like hot wings or things like that, just on the floor, which I don't own the movie theater. I don't care. It's just so disrespectful to everybody else around you.
That's a whole nother topic of what food is appropriate for a movie theater.
Yeah.
Because I'm in the ballpark of no hot wings.
Yeah, I don't think hot wings belong in a movie theater. Hot wings are maybe the most messy food to eat. I need a wet nap. I need a wet nap. I need a dry napkin. I need a place to put the bones. I need to make sure that the sauce isn't going to spill on me in the dark. I don't know. Ranch dressing in the dark is not necessarily a good combination. Anyway.
I'm at the point with movie theaters and people's poor etiquette where I think I would rather wait until movies come out and streaming. And I did this with both Wakanda Forever, and I'm doing this with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It has to be a movie that I'm particularly excited about for me to go see it in film or in theater, with how angry people make me when I'm at the theater. So I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah, I lived it last night, and then we were recording today, so I just wanted to talk about it.
Well, and it's somewhat relevant to our conversation because you did see the Dungeons and Dragons movie, and that we will discuss that. Haley and I we're probably going to go see your folks next weekend, and so we might take the opportunity to go do it then, because I don't think we'll be hurt for childcare.
Go swing by the old Ada Lowell 5.
Ada Lowell 5. I think last time I went to the Ada Lowell 5, it was to see the Rise of Skywalker. So that was an incredibly disappointing experience, which hopefully will be remedied by the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
I will say, I'm not going to spoil anything or go in depth because we're going to save it for an actual review. I had a very enjoyable time watching the new Honor Among Thieves D&D movie. It washed the terrible taste of the 2000 film out of my mouth. I'm going to replace that taste when we do the sequel to the D&D movie, War of the Dragon Queen or something like that.
Well,
So we'll put the bad taste back in, but
it's the yin and the yang, right?
Yeah.
You have to balance things out.
But I'm very excited to go see this movie again in the theater. And yeah, if you also had a bad taste in your mouth from the 2000 film, I implore you to go see this. It was fun. It was funny. Had adventure. So many D&D, like you don't have to be a D&D fan to understand the film, but if you do follow Dungeons and Dragons and play the game, there's so many references that you can catch that makes it so worth it. And the fact that they're in the Forgotten Realms.
Oh, they are?
The very beginning of the film, there's a map of the Forgotten Realms, and they show you all the different places that they travel to. They go to the Underdark. They go to Neverwinter, the Icewind Dale in the north.
They go to Icewind Dale?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's an awesome movie. I'd say I gave it like an 8.5 out of 10. There's still things that I would have liked, and we can get into all that when we actually do the review, but it was a good movie. Highly recommend.
Well, that's good to hear. I was like, oh, there's something. I had some thought about the Dungeons and Dragons movie,
but it's gone now.
It's gone now, gone and forever. Like mist, it has evaporated completely from my mind.
Like tears in the rain.
Like tears in the rain. Let's see. So,
what are we here for? Actually,
what are we here for? What are we going to talk about? Well, this is the 20th anniversary of
Return of the King.
Release of the Return of the King. It's been 20 years since the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy was released. Talk about theater experiences. I did not see the Fellowship of the Ring in the theaters. I saw it on a tiny, low definition television in Sun Valley, Idaho, when I was on summer vacation. Did you see all three of these movies in the movie theater?
I did not. I think I saw Two Towers and Return of the King. Return of the King for sure. Two Towers might be iffy. And I was only like 8 years old when Fellowship came out, so I was pretty young.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I went to the midnight premiere of The Two Towers, which was a lot of fun, considering I was given permission to stay up as late as I did on a school night. And then for Return of the King, I saw it by myself. Again, this was my family. We were, I think, down in Washington, D.C. for the holidays to see my grandparents. And I wanted to see Lord of the Rings. So I walked to the theater, saw it by myself, and kind of came back. It was, and I mean, it's a good movie, but it kind of, ends slightly bittersweet with everybody kind of leaving and whatnot. And so it was kind of a sad experience.
It's a tearjerker.
For me to walk back like in the dark, in the cold by myself. But anyway, so that was 20 years ago that we had the original release. And Sean, you found this article somewhere online.
Just like you had for Wizards, an article randomly popped up.
Don't blame me for that.
Well, no, I'm blaming the internet. Because I had this article pop up, and it is entitled 10 Harsh Realities of Rewatching The Lord of the Rings. And the subtitle is, Movies are rarely as perfect as fans remember them, and viewers of the Lord of the Rings trilogy must face harsh realities upon a rewatch. Now that's a pretty bold, heading and subheading.
Well, let's dive into it. There are 10 topics, 10 harsh realities that we're going to come face to face with. I think some of them we maybe will agree with and be able to kind of quickly affirm it. And then others, maybe there's a bone to pick.
And others that we just completely disagree with. So it's not even worth talking about.
Yeah. Well, that is also true.
So I think what we should do here, let's just read the 10. We'll go every other. And then we'll start at 10 and work our way down and see. We can stop if there's one you want to talk about. And I'll stop if there's one I want to talk about.
All right, let's do it. Take it away.
So, number 10, some jokes weren't so funny.
Yeah, the underlying material for the movie itself is not that funny. It's an epic adventure. It deals with absolute good and evil, friendship, honor, history, love. It is not a...
It's not a comedy.
It's not a comedy. With one exception, which I really only got hip to during my most recent reading of the Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And that is in the chapter, The Houses of Healing, Aragorn is totally shit talking everybody who works there. And
I
it's
don't
not
recall this.
Yeah, it is so good. I was reading it to Haley and to at that then, our child who was in utero at the time. And I had to stop and kind of just remark how I don't remember this being so funny and him being such a dick. It's not like he's being a total jerk. He's just kind of chiding them for the knowledge that they've lost, because this is when Ethelas makes an appearance. And he's like, oh, that weed. He's like, maybe if you all paid more attention to the songs of old, you would know your herb lore or something. I'm not doing it justice. It's very well written, but it was actually funny, good, relevant, whatever.
He's just savage roasting him.
Yeah, and there's a few of those things with Gandalf too, and I think they do a good job with Gandalf.
But the example that they give as a joke not being funny is at the end of the Council of Elrond. If you follow the extended editions right before the break, where you have to change discs, there's like an abrupt Pippin goes, "Great, where are we going?" Now, I actually think it's funny. I disagree with this person that joke doesn't land well. It's the whole point of Pippin in the films, particularly, is that he's kind of a dimwit and he's kind of aloof. Maybe he wasn't listening to the entire Council of Elrond and he just shows up when everybody else is saying they're going on this mission. Yeah. He's like, I'm going too. Like, that's funny to me. So I don't know. I disagree with the author on this one.
I'll say this as well. It's partially also setting up other moments with with Pippin that are very funny. Or honestly, very fun. They're not knee slapping. The whole Fool of a Took thing. Mm-hmm. In Moria, where Pippin potentially gives away their location and leads to the confrontation with the orcs. The other thing is that, and this is where my recent read, I might be mixing things up a little bit, but I think there's a moment where Gandalf talking about Pippin, I think this is after the Palantir, where Pippin almost really causes some problems, but doesn't. And then he goes
it actually benefits the party.
In the long term, it totally does. Totally does. But it could have gone very poorly if I think they were worried that Pippin would have revealed the fact that Frodo had the ring or something like that, and that he was going to Mordor instead of what Sauron thinks. He's got the ring, or Aragorn has the ring, and the ring is going to Minas Tirith. And then in the book, Pippin agrees to go to Minas Tirith with Gandalf, and someone says to Gandalf, I think maybe it's Aragorn, who says, "Oh, why is Pippin doesn't know what he's getting into." And he's like, yeah, he doesn't know what he's getting into, but he was talking about Pippin being brave, and he would, even if he knew the reality of how dangerous Minas Tirith was, he would still go. And so this is kind of an allusion to that idea that Pippin, where are we going? He doesn't care, because Pippin, for him, it's Pippin, he's friends with Frodo, he's friends with Sam, he wants to come with them. Mm-hmm. So it was funny, but it's also a good representation of kind of the spirit of Pippin, which is this kind of genuine guy. He doesn't care about where they're going because he's going with the people that he wants to be with. And
it's not like these are like non-PC jokes from 20 years ago that aren't landing. Like when you rewatch The Office or something, this is like, these are harmless jokes that this person just disagreed with. Okay. Well, anyway, number 9, what is it, Sam?
Boromir's character wasn't as deep in the theatrical version.
I have no beef with this. Watch the extended.
Yeah, I don't remember what the theatrical version is, because every subsequent watch, I'm watching the extended editions. I will say that for me, the difference is the character of Boromir between the books and the movies.
Yes, I think, and I don't want to say I'm positive, but I'm fairly certain that Boromir isn't in Two Towers or Return of the King, or is in them incredibly sparingly. Now, in the extended editions, they reference him a lot in the Two Towers and Return of the King as backstory for Faramir, as backstory for Denethor and what he's going through. So, of course, there's a reason the extended editions exist, and they do Boromir justice.
Yep.
Number 8, Saruman's fate isn't resolved in the theatrical version. No, this one I agree with. It doesn't really bother me that much, because if you've read the books, you have an idea of what happens, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you have an issue in the extended edition with the way that they kill off Saruman, or do you not?
It doesn't really bother me. if you don't kill him off that way, then you have to do the whole scouring of the Shire. And apparently Don Marshall 72 on TikTok, who I've referenced on this show before, discovered that they shot a whole bunch of other footage for Lord of the Rings that they didn't put in the extended editions. And he's trying to get a second extended edition.
Does it include the scouring of the Shire elements?
I believe there's elements of scouring in the Shire.
I think there's an interview with Peter Jackson. Maybe it's on the DVD commentary or one of the DVD editions, and he says that he was kind of responding to the criticism about the endings, and he says, we shot an ending where orcs take over the Shire, but it just wouldn't work, which I agree with.
But show us, let us see it.
Yeah, I mean, they shot the footage of Sauron manifesting on the battlefield and fighting Aragorn, right? You've seen
instead of the troll, yeah.
Yeah, and then they put the troll in afterwards. That was a good call. That's also a departure from the book to insert Sauron into the fight, the Battle of the Morannon. Here, the departure from the book is excising the scouring of the Shire, which, again, I just did a reread. I don't think Haley had read that chapter or kind of remembered it because she's seen the movies so many more times than she's read the books. And it was a strange experience to go through all of the Return of the King and then have the scouring of the Shire. And it would not have, I think it would be very challenging to pull that off in a movie, especially in the movie that we got, which it didn't need the scouring of the Shire. It was an effective, very well told, moving story.
There's also scenes that were shot of Elijah Wood as Frodo where he keeps the ring and he begins to transform into a more Gollum-esque person.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of footage.
Does he wander around Mount Doom for some untold number of days? You hack.
Number 7.
Or no, that wasn't actually. That was the Rankin Bass. I apologize.
Sorry, right. Ralph. We messed up one time.
You messed up many times.
Everything else is on you.
Number 7. Elrond wouldn't just let Isildur walk away. This, of course, is the scene of Elrond. Throw it into the fire, Isildur. What do you think about this?
I mean, who were you to say? And not you, but who is this author of this article to say that Elrond wouldn't do something? Isildur is Elrond's great whatever relative. And who is he to interfere with a king of Gondor at this point? So, what's the other alternative? To push him into the lava? Yeah. And then we have no Lord of the Rings? The Middle Earth is in peace? So it's just stupid. I don't know.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, the more I think this point is stupid.
Yeah, I think this point is stupid. It's one of those things why didn't they just get the Eagles and take them to Mordor? Because
there's a reason for that though.
Okay, so parking lot let's get back to that. Let's get back to the Eagles because that's one of those very common things.
Because I'll fight somebody over that point.
Well, and to be fair, you use the fucking Eagles to win the Lord of the Rings board game more times than anybody cares to admit. All right, so we'll talk about that in a second. But the other thing is, they just defeated Sauron. They just killed his body, defeated his armies, and successfully laid siege to Barad-dûr. So it wasn't exactly clear in the moment that you needed to throw the ring into the fire. Only in retrospect, however many thousands of years later, can Elrond say, the strength of man failed. And I don't none of that's and I think in a lot of the background writing is, again, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but Isildur knew that he couldn't handle the ring and was taking it to Elrond to discuss what to do with it when he was killed in the disaster at Gladden Fields. So disagree with this point. We've already talked about how it wouldn't happen. Elrond is not going to stab Isildur in the back and push him into the fire. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a story.
Yeah, just a story's your story. So.
All right, your turn. Number 6.
Number 6. Faramir's characterization is frustrating. We've already talked about this. Faramir in the books is a way better drawn out character than in the films. It is one of my major qualms of the Peter Jackson trilogy. The whole relationship with Faramir and Gandalf as Faramir. I mean, Denethor references that from the books in the movies. He says something along the lines of not some wizard's pupil.
Yep.
But there's barely any actual communication between Gandalf and Faramir. And if we got some more of that, I feel like it would have developed his character more. I understand what they do with the having him go a little dark so he can try to gain his father's approval. And that's when I watched the Lord of the Rings films, I don't go, Faramir's turning evil. I think Faramir's trying to get his father's approval, and he knows bringing the ring to him will do that. Yeah. And there's hints of evil there, but the way with Boromir dying and the negative relationship he has with Denethor throughout Two Towers and Return of the King, it paints the picture to me that it's a son trying to get approval way more than evil Faramir. So I don't knock the films for that, but there's so much character development that they don't include with him and Gandalf that I wish they would.
There's a ton of stuff with Pippin and Baragon, one of the guardsmen of the tower, talking about how great Faramir is. And you get the sense that like Faramir is loved and respected by his men and the people of the city. And he is just much more fleshed out in his interpersonal conversations when he's on the page, but also in these kind of third person ways where he's being characterized by third parties. I think there's a line where Gandalf kind of hints at either knowing that it would happen or hoping that Faramir would run into Frodo and that he would propel him along the path toward Mordor.
He'd assist.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, can Gandalf see the future, or is he just, really hoping that things would happen? Whatever. That's.
But to your point, like Gandalf trusts Aragorn, and if he's showing the same level of trust in Faramir, that speaks so highly of Faramir. And yeah, he's one of my favorite characters in the books. And whenever I would play the Return of the King on PlayStation 2, I would do the cheat code to unlock Faramir immediately, and I would just play as him for the entire game.
Well, there you
go. Fun fact about me.
I've also played that game a lot.
I still have it. So next time you're in the Pacific Northwest, we
can do a co-op, take on the Battle of Valinor Fields.
We'll bust it out and play as Faramir. Sam, number 5.
Number 5. The Ents should have made the decision to attack Saruman on their own. And
I'll let you lead off with your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so I think part of this is they needed to give Merry and Pippin something to do, and there needed to be drama in that scene. Otherwise, it would kind of plod. And if that scene dragged out, it would be very fitting because the Ents are supposed to be these very slow-moving, slow-to-act creatures. And really, we don't get much of the Entmoot. We get Merry and Pippin and Quickbeam kind of walking around the forest and talking. But I don't hate this. I don't hate how they did it in the movie as much. I guess the one thing I don't care about their decision, because ultimately they did make their own decision. Merry and Pippin were not successful in the Entmoot. It was only their kind of the trick of walking closer to Isengard is what convinced the Ents. The thing that I don't like about the depiction of that was all of a sudden all of the Ents just walk out of the forest. Like as soon as Fangorn or as soon as Treebeard sees what's happened with Saruman chopping down the forest, all of the Ents just happen to be there. That to me was a little bit, okay, that would have made sense if they were all actually marching on Isengard, but you said no. I would imagine that the other Ents would kind of go back to whatever they were doing, and it would take a while to then reassemble them for this attack on Isengard. That's the only qualm that I have with it. I don't care about the...
Yeah, and I've noticed, I've thought about that too, and I just brush that away as like a nitpick.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, you had to adapt. You had to adapt it into a movie. The movie has to have drama and conflict. You need Merry and Pippin to actually do something to propel the action forward. It's fine. All right.
Number 4, Gandalf should have been able to defeat the Witch King.
I agree.
I disagree.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to, in my head, internalize what I think. And I know the comparison, Gandalf can take out a Balrog, but he can't beat the Witch King. Gandalf dies fighting a Balrog. The Balrog doesn't have a ring of power. Gandalf does. The Witch King has a ring of power. So I get wanting him to be able to defeat entity like the Witch King, But I also think it raises the stakes. Like when you're watching the movie and like this is right before the charge of the Rohirrim at Pelennor Fields.
Which we should clarify that Gandalf and the Witch King don't actually fight.
Yes.
In the movie, and this is in the extended edition, all that happens is the Witch King breaks Gandalf's staff, which I disagree with that. I don't think the Witch King would be able to,
but yeah, that shouldn't have happened,
through his magic, destroy the staff. Like the staff of Gandalf is the like physical manifestation of his power. He's a higher order being than, again, Gandalf is an angel. The Witch King is a ghost, basically, that has been imbued with some of the power of Sauron, but they don't actually fight. There's a confrontation. If I want to be really nitpicky, that confrontation should have happened at the broken gates of Minas Tirith, not on a high ledge overlooking the city. And even in the extended edition, the cut is really kind of awkward, where there's a weird transition from like zooming in close to the Witch King to then the cut, you're zoomed out, but you're not actually zooming or panning. You're just, the shot is further away, and then he kind of flies off.
But for the dramatic effect of the moment, you have the gates of Minas Tirith are broken, the orcs are charging into the city, everything seems lost, Faramir is about to be burned alive. Then you have Gandalf, who stopped and seemingly defeated in the moment, is about to be killed, eaten by the fell beast. Then you have the charge of the Rohirrim. The Witch King has to go back and return to the battlefield to like coordinate defenses against the Rohirrim. So, I don't hate it. And I understand why they did it, but I don't know, I disagree.
Well, let me say this. The Witch King did not defeat Gandalf. They were beginning to have their encounter. Had it gone to an actual fight, my money's on Gandalf. But again, that's not what we got. That was not the intention of either the film or the book, was to actually have them duke it out. So things happened the way that they did. The real conversation is, how did the dagger that Merry used to stab the Witch King actually undo the spells that were laying upon him by Sauron? Riddle me this.
If only the movies would have gone as in depth as the books.
We had no Barrow White.
Number 3, Sam, read it.
Denethor's death wasn't as hardcore.
Now, the most hardcore thing about Denethor's death, like, I understand in the books, he kind of realizes Faramir's still alive and then stands on the pyre anyway and just stands there and burns himself to death and doesn't scream or run. He just dies. But what's hardcore in the movies, like if you look at a map of where the burial chambers are for the kings of Gondor, where he lights himself on fire, and you see how far he has to run while on fire to jump off the edge of the cliff there. The fact that he was able to stay upright and make it like 400 yards to be able to jump off a cliff, that's pretty fucking impressive.
Yeah. He's a tough dude. I mean, I think some of this goes into we don't really understand in the movie, in either version, the theatrical or the extended. And again, I've only watched the extended recently, and I doubt that. I don't think it's in the extended, so it's certainly not in the theatrical release. They don't really get at why Denethor has this mental break. Or let me say, they substitute Faramir's
the death of Boromir.
They kind of make the death of Boromir and then the seeming death of Faramir the things that break Denethor. But in the book, it's actually Sauron through the Palantir.
Yep.
And that is and it's something that was kind of long going.
Because Denethor didn't know that it was Sauron showing him these things.
Yes.
And he basically shows him that there's no path to victory, that it's all futile. That's why Denethor is hopeless and helpless at the end.
Yeah. But he wasn't a panicky, manic, frantic, homicidal, suicidal guy.
Tomato eating fiend.
Yeah. Sing me a song.
Hey boy. Sing me a song.
Yeah. He was a broken man in the book. And that's what they didn't do. And it wasn't like hardcore, I'm going to burn myself alive. It was, there is no hope. I die now.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye. I die now.
I die now. All right. Number 2.
Frodo doesn't feel as heroic. 100%. that's one of my biggest problems with the Peter Jackson trilogy is Frodo is always relying on other people, and they never really paint him out to be as strong-willed. I don't know. That's just the way I watch the movies and the way I feel about Frodo as the character.
Yeah, after my more recent read through, I have to say my least this is going to be tough. I am not necessarily as big a fan of the Sam Frodo portions of the movies as I am a fan of the Sam Frodo portions of the books. There's more depth there. There's more, their relationship is deeper in the books. I think that you get a much better sense that Sam is the hero as much as Frodo is doing the big things. Maybe I need to rewatch The Return of the King to really get a lot of those hits of, the fight against Shelob and the Tower of Cirith Ungol and the march toward Mount Doom. But yeah, I think that Frodo is often kind of, he's weaker, right? You said he's relying on other people to do the hard stuff. Like he gets, and I don't recall if in the book, during the fight in Moria, if Frodo actually enters the fight and is swinging sting. I think he is, but I can't recall. Like I think he stabs the troll in the foot in the movie. I can't remember, but he seemed very passive. Like he was just kind of there as the mule for the ring, and you get really good scenes with him and Gandalf talking about fate, doing what we have with the time that's given to us and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. This is a tough one to agree with, but I think I might have to agree with you and with the article.
Well, and it's okay if the books did it better. That's fine.
Yeah.
Sam, what's the last one?
Last one. It's impossible to reclaim that first viewing experience.
No, that's the thing. I don't really have these.
Yeah.
Like, if I would have been a 25-year-old and going to see these in theater, then I think I would be able to agree or disagree at this point. But I mean, even seeing The Return of the King, I was like 11 years old and I saw it in theaters. So, I mean, sure, for this person, it's hard to reclaim those experiences. But as we look at like this list of 10, there's a couple we'd agree with and a couple we disagree with. But I wouldn't classify any of these as like 10 harsh realities.
No.
Like none of these, I would rewatch The Lord of the Rings and go, oh, that really didn't land well, or oh, that's awkward. Now, when I referenced The Office earlier, there's episodes of The Office that I watch and I go, oh, that's a rough joke in 2023, but really funny in 2009.
Oh, you should watch some King of the Hill.
Oh yeah, totally.
Which I do on occasion, especially when your dad's visiting. But here's the line that gets me. For most fans, watching The Lord of the Rings for the first time is the best time. Getting attached to the characters, not knowing who will die and who will return, and witnessing the massive scale of the battles and the set pieces for the first time is a sublime experience no one can recreate. I think what this does is it supplants the movie watching experience for the reading of the book. And I think the book should come first. So you're not watching the movie, I didn't see the death of Gandalf coming. Oh, I didn't see the return of Gandalf coming. The time to be surprised is when you're reading the book for the first time. You're having the book read to you for the first time as a young kid. And then the movie is seeing those things in the flesh, or seeing those things on the screen for the first time. I've rewatched Lord of the Rings, I do not know how many times. And I always enjoy it because it is they're three great movies, and the story is fantastic. The music is great. All I need to do is hear the music and I'm back watching, experiencing things in a visceral way. The Ride of the Rohirrim, or the Balrog fight, or some of those epic moments. Just hear the music or see a snippet and I'm right back there. So this is, it is true that you can never reclaim your first viewing experience, but I think this is in many ways, my subsequent views were more enjoyable than the first one, because it's kind of building on the memory and the emotion that I have attached to the scenes and the characters and the story.
And not only that, but having the ability to then go back and read more of the material. Like when I read the Silmarillion for the first time and then watched the extended editions, and you realize how much more context you have. I completely disagree with the last point now that I've thought about it.
Which
Just
one?
because that you can't reclaim that experience.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because after I read the Silmarillion and had like a full grasp of Tolkien's world, everything that needed to happen in Middle Earth for the events to take place in the Lord of the Rings, when I finally had that appreciation and realization, that's when I fully took in Lord of the Rings for the first time. And that was maybe like 5-6 years ago. So, yeah, no, I completely disagree with this person.
Yeah. Well, that is it for our list of the 10 harsh realities of rewatching The Lord of the Rings.
If you want to read the article, we posted it on our Facebook page, Elves, Rings, and Nerdy Things. You can comment on that post. Let us know if there were any that you really disagreed with. If there's anything that you completely agree with, let us know. You can email us at elvesringsnerdythings@gmail.com if you just want to complain about how we sound. Sam, do you have anything else?
I think that's really it. So I don't know, but I hope our next episode can be a discussion of the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie. I will endeavor to watch it. I will roll the dice and go to the movie theater and watch this film, and then we can discuss. So that's a look ahead. I'm glad that we got to talk about Lord of the Rings. It's a testament to the work of J.R.R. Tolkien and the filmmaking abilities of Peter Jackson that there is always something to discuss about. And I just realized that we parking lotted the Eagle discussion.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to talk on that quick?
Let's do that real quick.
So anytime somebody comes at me and goes, oh, why didn't the Eagles just take the ring to Mordor? Because the Eagles work for Manwë.
Okay,
and in the events of the Silmarillion, Manwë has sworn off any assistance to helping whatever goes on in Middle Earth. He's pretty much like, fuck you guys. Manwë is the god of air, and the Eagles kind of are under his dominion. Now, that's why it's a cool thing at the very end of the battle, right before the ring is destroyed, that the Eagles show up. That's because Manwë is deciding that he wants to assist. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I disagree with that last point that the author made from the article, because when you read the Silmarillion and you know why things are happening, when Pippin goes, oh, the Eagles are coming. That's because this pantheon of gods that exist in this world that have basically sundered themselves from Middle Earth have changed their minds and are now assisting the free peoples of Middle Earth in their fight against Sauron.
So agree, yes, the Eagles are servants of Manwë. There's actually some debate about whether or not they're on par with the elves or even the Maiar, as far as, what type of being they are. Like, what is do they have souls and things like that? We're not going to get into a discussion about the souls of Eagles in Middle Earth. There is also this idea that probably too meaty to talk about today, but is it the fact that do the Eagles show up at the end because Manwë changed his mind, or was that always what was going to happen, but people needed to do the necessary steps to get to that point? The idea that it's Mandos is the Vala of death and prophecy, right? He's the one who pronounces the doom on the Noldor when they leave.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the one who kind of has described what will happen, and the Daggerath and kind of the ages of the world? And there's some debate about whether or not Tolkien kind of firmly synthesized all that before he passed away, and how much of that is just kind of ideas that were sketched out. But I guess the question is, were the Eagles always going to show up at the battle? And that assumes that battle is always going to happen.
See, I disagree with predestination. So,
well, I think, and that's fine. It's fine to disagree with that in the real world, but in the fantasy world, where
that's what I'm saying, because I disagree with predestination, and that doesn't seem like a very Catholic thing, and I don't want to paint Lord of the Rings as a religious Christian work, because Tolkien didn't want us to compare them. If we're going to go that route, I don't even think Tolkien would have been the Eagles are predestined to show up at this battle.
There are these instances of saving the day: Gandalf in Helm's Deep, the Rohirrim at Pelennor, the Eagles, Gollum slipping and falling into the cracks of doom, that are basically rewards for keeping the faith, of doing the right thing. So again, I think that is kind of one of Tolkien's tapping into his Catholic faith and having these, basically, for lack of, and this is why the conversation on, are the Eagles, are they on an order with Gandalf? It's like, it's basically the angels show up at the end of the day and ensure that the faith of the men of the West is rewarded by, interfering on their behalf.
I just prefer Manwë changing his mind and deciding to assist. We're in the weeds now, everybody. We'll see you next week. We'll, like I said last time, we'll post if it's going to be the D&D movie Honor Among Thieves, or it's going to be something else. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Otherwise, thanks for listening.
See you, everybody. Bye.